one to put the cat amongst the pigeons. David Lynch's Mulholland Drive. Well, I'd say Liam, you suggested it, did you not? So,
I suggested a David Lynch film. Lost Highway was up on the cards, but yeah, Robbins was on that Mulholland Drive.
Okay, well, Liam, you start.
What do you want me to start with?
What were your first initial thoughts? Come the end credits. What were your initial thoughts?
On the end credits, I was just absolutely baffled. I was baffled pretty much throughout the entire film. There was a mixture of irritation, bafflement, confusion, terror, a little excitable in a couple of very specific scenes. And if those specific scenes weren't contextualized by the rest of the film, I'd be happier, I think. But you'd have a scene where they were like getting themselves naked and stripping off and whatnot, and you're getting into it, and then like 2 seconds later,
okay, yeah, sure,
you've got fucking. It was just ominous and just weird. You didn't really know how to feel half of the time. And I don't know whether his films are meant to be enjoyed. I don't know if they're intended to be entertaining or enjoyable or meaningful. I think they're meant to be experienced. And I've certainly had a strange experience. That's as much as I can say for now. But I have an idea of what may have happened, or what certain links are between certain things which don't seem to make much sense. But I suppose we can get into that in a bit.
James, what was your experience?
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't a very enjoyable film for me, I have to say.
Okay.
The one thing which I will say is that it stuck with me. Like, I was thinking about it afterwards for ages, and I don't really know what David Lynch's intention was when he was making that film, but I don't think it's a film to be made to really enjoyed, and it probably is a film to be like cogitated on. You need to sit with it for a while, and you can look and rewatch it and get multiple different meanings. But I think first time around watching that thing was just, it was quite tiring. I was trying to piece things together, and then have times you're like, oh, what's going on here? Like, wait. Like, that happened to me quite a lot. That wait face was happening too many times in that film. But yeah, I think it's definitely something which sat with me, and I think that as an experience, it definitely made me feel things. Like, he's definitely toyed with my emotions in like quite. I don't know if it's. I'd say he's quite clever, master at doing that, but it just wasn't what I expected at all. I'm not sure, Gov, what you thought about it at all, but it may have been something similar, I expect.
Yeah, pass the baton on.
You run well with it, James. Tom?
Yeah. Do you think there was a storyline, James?
Oh, straight back at me. Do I think there was a storyline? Yes, and to be honest, for the first hour and a half of the film, I thought I was following it. I was like, yeah, okay, and I was like, I'm quite interested to see where this is going. They're going to figure out her identity and all this stuff. And then as soon as she picked up that blue box and dropped it and descended, for me, that was kind of like, that's when she came out of the dream. And so the whole first part of it was just a illusion, like a dreamlike space that she was in. And then the reality kicked in, and it was just a series of flashbacks that you're then being shown. And you can kind of see how some of the characters link into that flashback. So there was a little bit of a storyline there. But the one big issue I had with the film, I think more than anything else, is that at times it just felt like really self-indulgent. I just felt like I'm just seeing David Lynch all over this like picture. I'm seeing him all over it, and there was some characters that I just like. I don't even know what their relevance is in there, other than to just be weird and a little macabre, like the
that fits
one
into
with
the
the blue
dream,
hair at the end.
That fits into the whole dream narrative, or the dream aspect of the narrative, in that there are characters that appear in the film seemingly with some like influence on the plot, and then they kind of disappear and they never come back again, and that's kind of like what happens in dreams. I just figure the whole thing, like there were many narrative there were little narratives, like with a cowboy or with that matey in the office who had the gun, and they kind of show up and they do something and then they kind of don't really reappear again. They kind of just all their purpose is to add to the I don't know if it's just to add to the strangeness. That sounds a little contrived, because I don't think that he made the film trying to be strange. I would like to know whether it is like some representation of a dream that he'd had, perhaps.
I've got a theory in that I think what you're saying, right, it is a dream. So I think because the only like possible link there is that blue key. I think that blue key symbolizes the key that was found in her purse, and that's the link between the reality, which is the end scene, and the dreams. Because if you look at the end scenes in the reality period, so to speak, the final third, there's always touch points and references, and the characters all crop up, which is what happens in your dreams. There tend to be random characters from reality and your actual experience that tend to crop up, but not necessarily in the place that they are in reality, and they'll have a different role. So, for example, so obviously she's broken up with the woman in real life. So in her dream, it's a two-part thing. So the dream starts with the Rita in the car, and then you can tell it's a dream because she's moved from Ontario, which is a true story because that happens in the reality aspect, to LA to find her career. Everything good happens to her. She finds this woman that she's in love with, and that woman has complete amnesia, so she's completely beholden to her. She's completely reliant on her for everything, and they fall madly in love. She goes for her first acting role. They absolutely love her. They clap her out. The other person wants to even take her for another acting role, but that's when she sees the man. So Justin Theroux's character, who in the reality aspect is the lover of the woman that she's in love with. So obviously in the dream, therefore, his storyline is going to play out in a negative aspect. So that's why I think in the first instance, she locks eye contact with him and holds it for so long, because that's the dream processing that character, and the fact that there should be a negative narrative assigned to that. And that's why she runs away from being in his film. And if you look at his storyline throughout it, everything terrible happens to him, which is what, if you were dreaming something to happen, you would want a terrible narrative to be happening. So his wife cheats on him, he gets kicked out of his house, he gets bankrupt, his movie gets railroaded and destroyed, so his career is going to be over. So the whole narrative on that aspect is negative. And then the dream ending is when they finally kind of come to this almost like hypnotic, hazy part of the dream, when they're in the theater and nothing seems to make sense anymore, and the blue box comes, and that point where it breaks is when it's cutting back into reality and what's actually taking place. So that was my take on how everything tied together. Because obviously the cowboy as well, if you think of the way you dream it, characters, so Guy, even if a friend could possibly like crop up in a dream as like a random waiter somewhere, it's plausible because you were just picking on things from reality and misplacing them. Whereas that cowboy is part of the negative narrative for that, for Justin Theroux's character, because he was at the dinner party at Justin Theroux's house in which they said they were getting married. That's my take.
When you put it like that, Tom, I like the film a bit more actually. Yeah, I guess what you say makes more sense than what I've probably processed in my head for the entire last 24 hours. Like you've all said, it's David Lynch, isn't it? My one bugbear is just really really irrational points in films, and when characters such as like the cowboy, they're written in there, and it's just they have no real purpose to the plot by the end, and it just really really grates on me especially because you then get people that really really would love this film. It understandably would get a really big cult following, and they would just say, "Oh no, wasn't it great that the cowboy was in it, but didn't really have much of any purpose to the story?" So, well, not really actually. I feel like what you were saying, James, in terms of throughout the whole of the first sort of hour and a half, you're carried on this story. You really start investing in this story, and then it's not necessarily a bad thing that it's all flipped on its head, because then it makes you suddenly feel uncomfortable and uneasy with it all. But I feel like it just does lose the viewer slightly, because I really struggled to invest in the final 45 minutes or so, just maybe because it wasn't explained enough. But I understand this sort of difference between dreams and reality as an interpretation. I mean, there aren't a million specific interpretations of this film. It's left open to interpretation, but
yeah,
it was okay. Sort of just it left me a bit. It left me.
I find it weird that you say that you lost it in the last 45 minutes, because I think that's where I became most engaged. I think I was I had to watch it in a couple of parts, because halfway through the film, I just kind of felt, the narrative's quite simple in that they're just trying to work. It's like an amnesia film. It's like a Memento type narrative, and someone trying to work out who they are, but depicted in quite like quite spacey acting, without much kind of delivery. But it was that last 45 minutes that really tied it in. I was like, oh, okay, that was clearly an alternate vision of something.
I thought the film became a little more naturalistic in the last 45 minutes, which is strange considering obviously it was the dream was rising in its intensity at that point. But I thought the first hour or so was that all of the performances, it felt deliberately so, but all of the performances, they just felt so spacey. They just felt so stilted. They didn't feel as if they were people.
Yeah, it was all very dramatized, wasn't it? But all very sugar and sweet.
Melodramatic,
yeah.
but also it just felt like they weren't even really interacting with each other. It just seemed like lines were being spoken, and the people were more avatars than real people, which I suppose again fits with the idea that it's a dream, because people in your dreams, they may have the appearance of someone but they may not be acting anything like them, so I suppose it fits with that to some extent, but it was really jarring, just because of the standard format of a narrative storytelling, and the way that my mind has come to expect films to be. Certain charisma or certain chemistry or whatever it was between actors and actresses. I was pleased to find that the two women had some kind of a relationship blooming, because up until then, all of the characters were so separate from one another that it was really hard to engage. It was really hard to find a way in, as you say, Guy.